listening to The Kula Ring, a podcast made for manufacturing marketers. Here are Carman Perry and Jeff White.
Welcome to The Kula Ring. My name is Jeff White, and joining me today is Carman Perry. Carman, how are you doing, sir?
I am doing well, Jeff, but at time of this recording, I think everybody on the East Coast is wondering if we're ever going to see the sun again in the spring. So we come to you from sunless Halifax, Nova Scotia.
I don't know. I can almost see some blue sky
Hope
through
springs
those clouds.
eternal. But nevertheless, I'm really excited for today's episode. I think we've got just a really smart marketer on the line with a really interesting company with a fascinating background, and I'm just wanting to dive into it.
Yeah, I think there's some, products that everybody has in their office, most likely.
Yes, or maybe you've been the recipient of one of the products after a particularly negative meeting, but we'll get into that in a moment. Without further ado, Jeff, introduce our guest.
Sure. So joining us today is Tim Bay. Tim is the head of digital marketing at Fellows Brands. Welcome to the Kula Ring, Tim.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here. And talking about gray skies, it's been a tough spring in Chicago, so I empathize with you guys.
Man, it's it's a belly aching about the weather is a thing that almost unites everyone. Like I remember complaining once. I was in Berlin, Germany, and the person was talking about, Central European weather is you don't like it, wait 5 minutes, it'll change. And
wait, that's our line.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're all in the same boat, Tim. Yeah. But good to be chatting with you, Tim. I want to first, why don't you introduce us a little bit to you and your work at Fellows?
Absolutely. So I oversee digital for Fellows, and Fellows has been around for 100 years. We just recently celebrated our 100th anniversary. We were founded back in 1917. Banker's Box was the first brand, so record storage and now moving supplies. And over the years, we've obviously evolved into office products, office productivity, things like shredders, laminators, binders, and then most recently, workplace wellness. And those are things like sit-stand desks and active seating. We're a fourth generation family-owned company, and so that is without a doubt a guiding force for the organization. And I think throughout our history, we've been very focused on how do we help people achieve their best, be at their best, achieve their potential, and that's sort of been that unifying mission from day one to 101 years into our company history.
It is it's an interesting brand to get to know because in some ways, if you've been around an office at all, you've seen the Fellows logo. It's funny, in our coffee room here at Kula Partners, we have after I met with you in Chicago a number of weeks ago, I noticed as I'm sitting in there having an espresso, I look up and I see the boxes, and of course it has your address on the end of these old bankers boxes, right? And so it's just like we're surrounded by you now, Tim, it seems. But so I guess that is the source of my previous comment that if anybody's ever had the misfortune or fortune of being fired, you may have been handed one of the bankers boxes, which
it was even an in-joke at Kula for a while where we had a Fellows bankers box emoji that was just bandied about on the internal group chat.
It's really interesting. One of the things since I'm coming to Fellows, and I've heard this is when you watch TV, how ubiquitous the bankers boxes are. I was just watching a HBO show, not Game of Thrones, but another one. And they were in although that would have been cool product placement. But
you guys in the Starbucks cup. Yeah.
Yes, I wish we could have got in there. But yeah, you noticed that how ubiquitous those Bankers Box are. I watched it, and in the episode, I saw 3 different times our boxes in the background, so it's pretty fun.
Well, let's this is it's interesting starting point because of course this is your challenge. You are responsible for evolving 101-year-old brand, and these products have some staying power, and the brand has grown supported obviously by the growth in those products. So, but it seems like the Fellows of today is a very different company from Bankers Boxes. So, talk to me about the evolution of the brand and this, I guess, general shift in it, or pivot, if you will. Maybe that's too strong a term, towards the workplace wellness side of things.
Well, I think you have to do a lot of things right to be around for 100 plus years. And again, I think what makes us very unique is the family-owned business, and it is, like I said, it's definitely a guiding force. And I think our dedication and continued dedication to our mission of helping people be at their best and helping them reach their potential. And so when we think about the evolution of a 100-year brand, that sort of unifying thought and mission is driving everything that we do. Over time, the products can change, the products can evolve, right? Both in terms of new opportunities, like back in the day, things like CD holders. That wasn't something that was envisioned back in 1917, of course. But I think for our current CEO, for John, for him, it's constantly looking at where can we provide value to that consumer. Where can we do that in a way, again, that helps them be at the best? And I think that led us naturally into other product lines. And so obviously the trend around workplace wellness and health in the workplace, and the focus that organizations have on knowing that that's important to their employees, but also it's just good business, I think it's a natural fit for us. And for us, it's how do we leverage our some of our core pillars and values of innovation and quality, and just bring those into new product areas. So in some ways, there's no doubt there's challenges in how you continue to evolve as a 100-year-old company. But I think, and I've seen this at past companies that I worked with where we had similar challenges, is that if you really use that mission as your North Star, you end up getting to where you want to get to.
Of course, the world of work continues to change. How people work changes, and it's partly your job to stay ahead of that, anticipate where that's going, and frankly, it's less paper-based now than it ever was in the last number of years, and therefore paper-based products, or products based to hold them, obviously are not, or to shred them, may not be as much of the future as they used to be. So I think it's, of course, it all sounds fine and great and easy to say, oh, the world of work changes and we've got to stay one step ahead of it. It's harder to do that. And then beyond that, it seems like it actually pushes you to actually have to do business in different areas as well, because as you're moving into with products like the Alea chair, which can be purchased directly from Fellows online, that takes you completely outside of what I guess many would have thought as your traditional channel, selling through, say, a Staples or what have you.
Well, so there's a few things there. I think one is, when we look at, who we are. We are the leader. Bankers Box is the brand. We're the leader in terms of shredders. And the fact is, those products still play a role. As much as we want to say that we're a paperless society, the fact is we do very well in those products, and we continue. People change, I think, more slowly than sometimes we realize, or we want to think in the future, and we realize that some of those things stay along for longer.
Kind of like opinions change faster than the people, I think, is maybe
Exactly. And I think for us, so on one hand, we don't want to forget about those core products that still people, when you move houses, you need a box. When you store stuff, people still want to store in a box, and quality is very important. And the same thing, shredders, privacy is very important now. So while people are using paper less, privacy has maybe never been more important. Ironically, digital privacy is driving other types of sort of that traditional sort of atom-based, if you will, privacy. And so there's that one component, but I think again, if you look back in terms of that, the overall workplace wellness, it's understanding that people spend a lot of time at work, and how can we create the best environment for that? And people like being organized, for example. I mean, they get satisfaction in terms of shredding things or binding things or laminating things in terms of feeling this sense of order. And so again, for us, it's a natural evolution in terms of how do we, as people evolve and as opportunities come up, where can we be relevant and provide value in that? And I think the other thing too is what's again unique about us is, there's not a lot of companies out there that have been around for 100 years. And so while people may have grown up with us in different form factors than a sit-stand desk, for example, or a chair, the fact is that Fellows name, it means something to them. It means quality. It means innovation. So again, for us, it's how do we evolve that into different product forms? And I think in terms of being in different places, I mean that's a good point too. Is we have to evolve as a company. For us, it's not an or. It's not this channel or that channel. It's an and. And so we're looking at different ways to build product awareness and build brand awareness. So that might start as direct to consumer, but that doesn't exclude us looking at and continue to sort of get into these other channels. Alea is a good example. And so we all at the end of the day, it's important. I think from a digital perspective, we all want to be in the place where consumers want to buy. We can't force them to want to be in a certain channel. So whether it's online, whether it's in store, whether it's at retailer X or retailer Y, we just want to make sure that we're there to make the process as easy as it is for the consumer to get what they need. And again, that's part of our evolution from a digital perspective.
I've got to say, I was about to take you to task on this. How are you going to connect workplace wellness to being organized? And then
you and I have
then
both worked in print shops and know exactly
yeah,
that feeling of everything's all
yeah,
organized.
and thankfully this isn't a video podcast, so people can't see how messy my desk is typically, which is I should maybe feel that sense of order more often. Would be
Well, it could be aspirational, right? It doesn't necessarily mean we're there, but it's more aspirational.
yeah. No, I wasn't convinced initially, but you convinced me
Came
there,
around,
Tim.
eh? Well, I think it's interesting too, Tim. Not only have you decided to um, enter more into that kind of furniture space and the workplace wellness side of things, but you're doing it with products that aren't necessarily um, the Alea chair is a good example with the floating seat pan is it's a pretty advanced and interesting way of tackling that the ergonomics task. So how has that kind of played into the marketing of the chair?
Well, one of the challenges is it's never been done before, right? So to try, the category best would be described as active seating, but nobody says, "Hey, you know what I need? I need an active seating chair." And so I think as we look at telling the story, and I think that's what marketing is communicating the story and the value proposition. It really is in this case, it's showing people. If you talk about that floating seat pan, you're like, what? I can't conceptualize it because it's not in the marketplace until we brought it to market. And so we spent a lot of time talking about how do we communicate the value of it. How do we show it? And the best way to show it, of course, is actually video. And so if you look at the website, if you look at even some of the the social stuff that we've done, it's very much featured up front. That the fact that seat pan floats, and then a lot about what the experience is like, and there's a lot of questions that we know that people have. Can it support me? Does it provide a sturdiness and all those things? What about the durability? And so again, it's very much of telling the story in a way that resonates with folks and being able to address any sort of concerns they might have. So in that sense, again, from a marketing perspective, it's not different than telling the story for lots of other products. that are sort of new to the marketplace and people haven't seen before, or a different take on something that's very familiar, like a different take on a chair.
Most manufacturers are converting barely any of their existing website visitors into leads. If you want to get better than your competition at finding good prospects online, start by watching our webinar, How to Manufacture Better Content. This webinar from Kula Ring host Jeff White will teach you how to produce manufacturing-focused content that works. Watch it now at bit.ly/HMBC webinar. That's bit.ly/HMBC webinar.
I do think it says something about fellows, though, that your attempt to crack into this space initially is with something that's frankly such a different product. It's a really different approach in what is probably the area of contract office furniture that is innovated on the most. Chairs probably receive more design attention than an awful lot of other aspects of
Mm-hmm.
office furnishing. So to actually even to see a way clear to do something new there is I think quite remarkable. And it seems to me too that it's, I guess, maybe my perception is just out of date, but it's surprising, at least a little bit to me, to see you guys selling this directly. And it feels to me that the office furniture space overall is just ripe for some level of buying disruption. Yeah, like it's clunky as all get out to buy office furniture, really. Um, so how I guess, but one of the things that people would say about that is that you typically need to try before you buy when it comes to a chair. So how are you guys managing the logistics of that? Can I do will you send me the chair and I can send it back if I don't like it, or how does that work?
I mean, all great questions, and those are things that that we had to address, right? Because, I mean, think about shoes, right? Zappos created a business around something that traditionally you think, oh, I got to try this on, right? I got to see how it feels. Mattress. Think about online mattresses, right? So the same thing. You sleep in that bed every night, and you're used to going to a mattress store, and it seems like there's thousands of them. And how do you create online business? And so I think one is reducing those barriers. Things like 30-day free trial. Don't like it, send it back to us, no problem. We'll refund your money. Understanding things like warranty, customer reviews and testimonials. All those things are really important to be able to make the process easy for somebody and to reduce that risk for them saying, hey, I think that looks really cool. I think that looks like that could, help me, feel more comfortable when I'm doing, whatever I'm doing. And I'm going to give that a try because I know if it doesn't work for me, I can trust that I can send it back to fellows, no problem, and I'll get my money back. And so that's a very important part of sort of our story because we know that's something you have to experience. And quite honestly, it's one of those things you don't understand how good it is until you set in it for a little bit. And so again, that's part of something that we have to do to understand, how do we make it easy for the consumer? And I think in terms of you talk about disruption, for us, it's not just about direct to consumer, but it's getting the product out there and building a market for it. I think there will be folks that want to buy it through contract furniture, and they're going to want to continue to do that because that's what works best for them. That's an option for them. There are going to be people that want to buy it directly from us, and there are folks that going through contract furniture is not an option, and we want to make it easy for them as well. If one person wants to buy it because they work at home all day and they want that comfort and that active motion, we want to make it easier for them. So again, I think it's this notion that, for us, it's about making it easy for folks no matter, what path they want to take.
No, yeah, I think it's a really interesting strategy. They basically direct sale e-com play as a brand building strategy prior to potentially other channels.
Well, I think for us too, it's also about it's about learning, right? This is a new product. It's a new product to the marketplace, and so there's been a tremendous amount of information that we have learned as we put it out in the marketplace, as we got feedback from people. And that allows us to continue to sort of refine our messaging and make sure that the things that are most important, most critical, that value proposition is getting out there. And so for us, it's a little bit of seeding, right? We're seeding this thing out there so that way, as other channels make sense and folks are ready to embrace that, that we can say with confidence, yeah, we really feel like we know how to communicate this in a way that makes sense and resonates with people. So again, that's for us. It's as much about that as it is about trying to generate direct revenue. Because I think again, from a brand perspective, we're always going to need folks outside of our ecosystem to support what we do. More people, the vast majority of brands sell way more off their direct to consumer experience off their website than they do on their website. Except especially if you take if you look at any other than the multi-billion-dollar big huge brands. So that's always going to be important for us. So it always has to be that sort of and, not direct consumer or something else. It's always an and for us.
I think it's interesting too. We have the fellow's website up with the chair on it now, and it's been playing this video on loop for the last 15 minutes while we've been recording. And I have to say, when the chair rolls backwards and it bangs into place, and you kind of see the seat pan move, it's like it's kind of like an ASMR kind of thing where it's just like soothing watching the video over and over again. The only active seating that I can recall using are those giant gym balls, and those are way less safe than this.
I'd be curious, Tim. You mentioned it as a bit of a learning platform
Yeah.
for fellows, um, and so put you on the spot a bit. I guess what's surprised you the most thus far? What's been the biggest learning, as it were?
uh, well, so a few different answers. I think one is I think even though people are focused on health and moving and understanding that sitting all day um, is bad for you, right? The comment is, we've heard this back from people. We know that sitting is the new smoking. It's not good for you. Um, but what you can't forget, and what's of paramount importance, is comfort. It has to be comfortable, and that notion of not just comfortable for half an hour, but for all day. So you talk about sort of the balls, the balls that you sit on, and that's about engaging the core and things like that. But the fact is, that's a second chair for somebody. They can't spend all day on that chair. They might spend 20 minutes, and that's about it. And so I think, for us, it's while we focus on the health benefits of it, and people certainly appreciate that, you can't forget that it's a chair. People sit in it all day, and it needs to be comfortable, and it needs to be supportive. And then I think the other thing is there are some specifics about the product that people didn't quite understand, and things like with the floating seat pan, how much support that is, and what actually supports that, and is it durable? And that goes back to how we've updated our messaging, we've updated our assets to really focus to make sure that's very clear, about the stability and the durability of it. So, again, at a macro level, we've learned things, and even micro level in terms of messaging, it's allowed us to refine, to really, again, make sure that we communicate the value and overcome concerns that people might have, or questions that they might have proactively.
I think that was interesting, and Jeff's comment around mentioning the stability ball or what have you. I mean, it's pretty key. You don't want to get into a place where you're competing against the stability ball. I mean, because you want to be the primary chair. You're not asking them to buy this chair and set it in the corner and sit on it 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's easy to see, obviously, from the site how you've updated the assets to try to show the durability and strength of the floating seat pan, which I think because you've done such a good job aesthetically on the design of the chair, it makes it. It's kind of surprising that it's that durable and can look
Yeah.
that sleek. I think that's kind of probably the thing that
The sweet spot of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating change, well, or at least continued evolution of direction for fellows. Tim, I wonder if you could, without letting too many cats out of the bag, give us a sense of what's next.
Well, I think that if we go back, just talking about the chair for a second, that was 4 years in the making, and it really started with um, trying to solve a consumer problem and deliver something that ultimately was of value. It wasn't just about creating a beautiful looking chair. It was about again providing value. And so I think as we look at um, opportunities, it is where can we help again folks be their best, and where can we continue to help people reach their potential. So it is we have for a 100-year-old company. We've been doing a lot of things right. And one of the things that we focus on is continually how do we innovate? How do we continue to bring new things? That could be iterating in existing products. It's bringing intelligence into things that haven't had that. So we've got some interesting things coming up with shredders where we're continuing to innovate in that. And I think again, what we're doing in some ideas that we're working around things with sit stand desks and the continued evolution of workplace wellness. We're just starting. And again, I think for us, it's not just in terms of the products, but how do we communicate that? How do we communicate the value? How do we make it easy for people to understand, what the value is, and make it easy for them to make their decisions? So I look at what we do from a digital perspective to be as important as in tandem with what we're doing from a product perspective, because we live very much in a digital world right now. And so that's how we can provide value from a product perspective, but also we can provide value from just an overall consumer experience perspective.
Has the using this as sort of an exploratory channel and selling the chair directly and kind of learning about how people respond to it and how you have to communicate the value of it, has that influenced at all any of your more traditional distributor type relationships? Like, have they come calling and said, when are we going to have an opportunity to sell this chair or anything like that?
Well, so absolutely, and again, being a family-owned business, um, John is, considers everybody that we work with, all of our partners, part of the family. And so it's very important to him that we're transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing it. And so we've had a lot of great communication around that, proactive communication around that. Again, for us, it's very much, at the end of the day, we're agnostic. We're not, the one thing about our direct to consumer is that we have an opportunity to communicate the value of the Fellows brand in the best way we can, right? And the value of our products and helping people make those buying decisions. And the fact is that will help all of our partners. Where they buy, again, is really up to the consumer. And we want to work with our partners to, whether it's contract furniture, whether it's office products, no matter what it is, to help them leverage what we know about our consumers and how to communicate the value of products so that they can sell more of our products to their channels. So that's very much what we're focused on. And again, I think the fact that we're a family business, that transparency and that partnership is extremely important to us.
It continues to it's I guess it's always an interesting thing. I meet a lot of manufacturers and get into these conversations, and probably more so than any other kind of broad business category, it is still very much driven by a family-owned enterprise, and and very significant size manufacturers still privately held, family-owned, and many like you in a fourth generation or so of evolution there, and it always surprises me in some ways just how much that those values continue to kind of be a driving force of business. Maybe it shouldn't, but it'd be that surprising. But it's a consistent story.
Well, it's you can talk about being a family business, right? You are a family business, and you can sort of tout that. What I've seen, without a doubt, at Fellows is it really does define who we are, and again, sort of that ethos in the business, and the one of the things that I've heard John talk about that his father spoke to him about at a very early age is the fact that they are there to serve the business and not vice versa. And there's definitely a feeling that you have, and I think also too. And again, this probably isn't surprising, but it's very real here at Fellows is the fact that their name is on those products. That's important to them. That means something to them, and so I think there's a focus on quality and you know, making sure that we do right by our consumers and our customers that is very personal to them because their name is on the product. And again, I think it is a guiding principle for us. And it does really, I've seen that in the time I've been here, it does have a significant impact on how we operate in such a good way. And I think it also, I think as businesses, we always want to talk about being consumer focused. But I think that family owned and the history of that and doing things the right way really helps us ensure that we're thinking about that consumer first and that consumer experience.
Tim, I think I think that's really great parting advice that you've given in just how you've addressed that topic, because I think it is something that a lot of manufacturing marketers deal with. They work within family-owned business, and some find it a struggle, or they choose to highlight maybe decision making that seems like it's based in something
Diametrically opposed to
well,
marketing.
who knows? Like they may just focus on the struggles that they have working as a marketer within that dynamic, and that those can be real. But I think what Tim has done here is really say, yeah, but the benefits of it are real,
Yeah.
and that's where you really ought to be choosing just the attention and the focus on that, and the way he tells that story, I think, is instructive for me. There's and like you say, their name is on that product, and that doesn't come without something. Um, it clearly drives a lot of the decision making. It's very instructive, Tim.
Absolutely.
Well, look, I think we're at the point in the show, and we probably should look at wrapping it up. Why don't I guess Tim put you on the spot? Any parting advice for your fellow manufacturing marketers as we conclude our podcast today?
I think as marketers, we have to recognize that in today's world, it's that much more important that we think about the consumer, the value we provide, and while we can never control our brand, so to speak, we can influence it. And thinking about as brands, what's your North Star, and how do you continue to reinforce that in everything that you do. And you just it can't just be a marketing message. It has to be something that you have to live within the organization. And I think it's a challenge for us sometimes because that the world is so transparent today and so real time. But actually, I think ultimately that forces us to be that much better at what we do, and I think that's a good thing for brands. I think ultimately it's a good thing for consumers, and I think that people talk about how brands are less important in today's world. I actually think just the opposite. I think brands that can provide value and develop those connections are even more valuable today than they have ever been in the past.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us on the Kula Ring today. It's been a pleasure.
I really enjoy it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Kula Ring with Carman Perry and Jeff White. Don't miss a single manufacturing marketing insight. Subscribe now at kulapartners.com/The Kula Ring. That's KULApartners.com/The Kula Ring.